And welcome back to Who Would Win, the week of Who Would Win. From Corin O'Keefe, we have the legendary, the age-old battle question of who wins in a fight. Gandalf versus Dumbledore. It shocks me that I actually haven't done this fight yet. I'm actually because I checked, looking at the suggestion, I've done this, right? Let me check. No, basically, I have not done this fight yet. So, obviously, both are wizards. One, though, is actually biologically a wizard. Like, he's legit, I believe, Mayar. Mayar is the actual name of what Gandalf actually is. And he's beyond human in many different ways. Or Maynard, or whatever they're called. But on Middle-earth, they take this human-looking appearance, but they are not human. Wizards and witches in Harry Potter, though, as we learn in Fantastic Beasts, have some minor biological differences that allow them to use magic, but by all accounts, they are, their anatomy seems to be the same, but there's something different in, say, their DNA that lets them to, utilize and, manipulate magical energies or whatever. But they are mostly human. But, so whenever we hear this matchup, most people just immediately think Gandalf. Gandalf's going to beat the pants off Dumbledore. Except for the people who think, oh no, Dumbledore's going to beat the pants off Gandalf. The problem just comes down to, it's not that easy. If we're looking at Gandalf, what advantages does Gandalf actually have? He's the far older and more experienced of the two of them. Gandalf is hundreds, if I'm not mistaken, hundreds of years old. Whereas I think Dumbledore, by the time we see him at the last time we see him before he's killed, spoilers for a very a old book. Were we at a decade to a decade old book now? Dumbledore age. How old was Dumbledore? He was Dumbledore. Dumbledore. Let's see, Albus Dumbledore age. That's what I want. Dumbledore. Albus Dumbledore age. How old was he when he died? 115 years old. Okay, so he was definitely up there, but and they both look old, but unlike Gandalf, Dumbledore actually was moving closer to someone who's ever Richard Harris's age actually was when he did that. But, he's still spry enough, still agile, but Gandalf literally can still fight orcs like a young man with a giant-ass longsword. Which then gets into the next thing Gandalf has over Dumbledore. Experience, because of that age, and on the field battle prowess. He's fought and killed. He's fought in wars. He has far better actual martial combat skills than Dumbledore. Not that we've ever seen him use a bow and arrow, but in terms of close range blade combat, oh, absolutely, he massacred Dumbledore in a fight. There's no doubt in my mind on that. However, people always argue that Gandalf's magic is far stronger than Dumbledore's. The strongest thing we ever see Dumbledore really do is those giant flames, I think, in the 6th movie. That giant flame spell he was doing. Now, obviously, he also did a lot of impressive magic against Voldemort in their fight. He can do wandless magic, sure. But people always argue that Gandalf is the stronger magic user. But let's actually examine that for a second. If we actually look at the types of magic that Gandalf does, he really doesn't actually have, magically speaking, a very impressive combat feat. We see him, at best, the best feat I think we ever really see him do is hold off Sauron for a spell, which is impressive. Let's not mince words. It's an impressive, but that's a defensive barrier type spell, and ultimately Sauron incinerated and stepped. Sauron won that fight. Of course, he's going up against Sauron, so it's not really a fair comparison. But otherwise, his staff, we know, can just randomly blow things up. He can create little orbs of light to, kind of light his staff up. He can call animals. He can draw out the evil in others. But if we break it down, he doesn't have immediate access to a lot of true magic. He can't just summon fireball. He had to light an acorn up in the hobby. Boo! That's how that worked. It's not like you can just go Avada Kedavra. You can't just randomly. Him and Sauron got into a telekinetic fight with their staffs. But ultimately, he lost that fight initially too until he became Gandalf the White and pretty much overpowered Saruman. Sorry. The problem simply comes down to Dumbledore can use wandless magic. We don't know to what extent he can do it. He literally saved Harry Potter's life though from falling to his death, so that's impressive. And even without his wand, I have a feeling the Death Eaters were not Death Eaters, the what? Not Death Eaters. Those are the name of the people who follow Voldemort. Dementors. The Dementors were like, he could scare off Dementors with his presence alone. The Dementors aren't normally scared of anything. But Dumbledore has immediate access to a lot more. He's also quicker on the draw. In terms of magic, they teach magical dueling in Hogwarts and in wizarding schools. So he knows how to immediately fight with his wand. And he's quick on the draw. We see him immediately react to a bunch of the stuff Voldemort threw at him. And keep in mind, too, Dumbledore was not trying to actually win that fight. He was stalling him. If Dumbledore were to put all of his effort into that fight, it begs the question if he could have actually beaten Voldemort at that point. But yeah, and then we see like the massive amount of effects that he has. So it's weird to say, even though Gandalf certainly is not without his magical capabilities, we just don't see him utilize them in combat very much. Like we see that fight he has with Saruman for a perfect example. Why isn't he just randomly doing that to a bunch of orcs all the time? I'm sure he does use magic in some capacity, like how he used his staff to crack the stone on that cliff so the sun would hit the trolls. I mean, why doesn't he just throw out the giant barrier to block people off? Probably because that's designed to block magic, if I'd guess. My guess, though, is that magic, because of the way magic works between the two worlds, there's got to be some sort of stronger limitation for Gandalf to be able to just spam out magical attacks. There must be some... How does magic work? Okay. Here's a good question. What's Gandalf's limit on magic? What is Gandalf's limit on magic? The Gandalf's limit on magic stemmed from his role as an Ishtar. It was Ishtar. Now, okay, I was right. It was Maya. It was the Maya spirit, but he's an Ishtar, an immortal man. He's physically restricted to avoid dominating Middle Earth, required to eat, sleep, and feel pain. He's strictly forbidden by the Valar from matching Sauron's power, intending to inspire. The mandate restriction, the primary restriction, is moral and divine, cannot be used to his power to rule the force of wills as Sauron did. His mortal body also limits this. He holds back most of his power, using it to primarily for guidance and protection, energy depletion. Powerful feats like battling the Balrog require immense energy and will leave him exhausted. Heavily restricted relies on strategy, wisdom, and small-scale magic. And I think this is where people missed... You know what? I'm so glad I read this. Because I think, okay, as Gandalf were right, the restrictions are partially lifted. He's allowed to use higher levels of power, shattering Saruman's staff, because he has a clear, more direct role in the fight. Okay, this I think is very key to this discussion. Because this is where people, I think, maybe misinterpret Gandalf being stronger in magic. By all accounts, he should be the stronger one, magically speaking. I mean, he's more or less a divine being in a mortal body with divine powers like that. But he literally has limiters on him. He literally can't go all out. Even going all out, even as Gandalf the White, is taxing for him. It drains his energy. I mean, look at what happened in The Hobbit when he went up against the Necromancer, aka Sauron. Sorry. God, why would you have two villains, by the way? Saruman and Sauron. Do you know how confusing that gets if you're going back to back? Of course, in the cartoon, they went Aruman. There was no S anymore. But that's the thing. Hypothetically, Gandalf has the greater magical power and prowess. Hypothetically. But he's got stronger limitations on what he can do than what Dumbledore can do. We probably don't even know a tenth of the spells Dumbledore actually knows. We just didn't know the stuff that he was actually able to do in the books, in the movies, all that. Like any spell we see, he probably actually knows, because he is considered the greatest wizard of his time. So because of that, It would be a knocked out, dragged out fight. He would definitely be keeping Gandalf at a distance this entire fight, though. He sees Gandalf as a staff or sees the sword. He knows damn well I'm going to disarm that sword, get that sword out of the way right now. What was it? Expelliarmus. There we go. And then he's just going to start throwing out low-level spells, Stupefy, whatever, Wingardium Leviosa, maybe cause Gandalf to float. Gandalf would probably counter with some of his own spells, but the problem is once he starts having to put a lot more effort into his spells, the difference is going to become clear. While his magic, Gandalf's, might be arguably more powerful, he can't utilize even his full power, even as Gandalf the White. And he uses enough of it, he's going to exhaust himself. Dumbledore will exhaust himself too, but he can spam a lot more in a lot quicker succession. And we still see that raw power-wise, he can throw out stuff that would kill Gandalf if Gandalf's not careful. Gandalf is an immortal body. He can still die. So, weirdly enough, I would lean to, and because I don't think this fight, sadly, would ever get into close range. Almost no wizard duels ever get into close range when it comes to Harry Potter characters, because they fight at a distance with magic. That's why if I had made a Harry Potter character, I'd like it to actually be a Harry Potter character whose spells involve close range magic. So I'm going to basically do like an Urza and summon weapons. I'm going to combine Urza and Bleach, and I'm going to be like, all my spells are Zanpakuto based. Cool, that's great. But I'm also like, all right, Katen Kyo Katsui, let's do this. And it's like, wait, you're fighting magic. These are magic. Woo, let's play a game. But yeah, that's the problem with Harry Potter characters. They're, for lack of a better term, they're wimps when it comes to the physicality of it. And if you're just bringing them into a fight, whereas Lord of the Rings has that edge, but because of that, they make sure to never make the fight get in close range. Which begs that, I never thought about this. I imagine he must have one. Does Dumbledore own a broom? I'm gonna look that up right now, because if he can, Avada. Not about Accio. Yeah, Accio is the name of it. Does Dumbledore own a broom? Let's find that out, because if he can just summon a broom, he can just literally, that's aerial combat. It's not explicitly confirmed in the books that he personally owns a broomstick, or as he rarely uses one, preferring to apparate. That's right, he can also apparate. He can teleport or fly on a threshold. That's right, he can teleport too. I completely forgot about that. As a powerful wizard, he generally has no need for a broom or transportation. Yeah, I've completely forgot about apparition or port keys. Like, seriously, he could also just literally create a port key and just toss it at Gandalf, who just hits it and gets sucked away. I completely forgot about that. So, yeah, in terms of battlefield combat, yeah, he'd actually be able to dominate the battlefield very effectively. So I'm gonna go Dumbledore in this fight. I originally always used to be a Gandalf guy, but no, I actually think Dumbledore does really hold the edge mostly in this fight. If, again, for whatever reason, the fight were somehow come down to these two in close quarters, Gandalf has the edge in that fight, especially if he disarms Dumbledore. If he cuts the wand in half, Dumbledore still has wandless magic, which we have no idea what his limit to that is. But Gandalf still has access to all of his magic. And at that point, it would be the Saruman versus Gandalf fight, except in reverse. And, Saruman, by the way. And just put him there. The only thing Gandalf can really do again is really put up that barrier to kind of block off Dumbledore's spells up until he eventually just gets tired out. So, yeah, I'm weirdly going to say Dumbledore takes this. But I know I'm going to get people who rage at me in the comments. It's par, of course, in this line of hobby. But, let me know what you think. Put the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.